Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm Don Arleth, and welcome to World News Tonight, coming to you live from Warsaw on TVP World. White smoke has risen from the chimney in St. Peter's Square. Habemus Papam. We have a new Pope. Leo XIV will tell you who he is, where he's from, and what impact he could have on the world. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, the latest headlines. Vladimir Putin meets with Xi Jinping. The leaders sign a series of agreements. Britain set to strike first trade deal, a world first with the Trump administration. And a woman has been killed in an axe attack at the University of Warsaw in Poland. White smoke was seen coming from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel early on Thursday evening, indicating that we have a new pope. And just 70 minutes later, his identity was revealed. The new leader of the Catholic Church will be American Cardinal Robert Prevost. Crowds cheered as the new pope was announced from the central balcony at St. Peter's Basilica just before dusk on Thursday. The American Cardinal Robert Prevost has been chosen, his papal name, Pope Leo XIV. Cardinal Prevost later made a speech to the crowd gathered below the balcony in St. Peter's Square and led thousands of faithful together in prayer. He was made cardinal by Pope Francis in 2023. The former leader of the Augustinian order was also appointed by the late pope to the powerful dicastery for bishops, which oversees the selection of new bishops from around the world. This was a very quick decision. It came on the first day of voting by the 133 cardinal electors who secluded themselves behind the Vatican's medieval walls on Wednesday afternoon. Moving on now, U.S. reproachment towards Russia now seems to have been derailed as Chinese and Russian presidents meet together in Moscow, signing a series of agreements deepening bilateral cooperation. All of this ahead of the May 9th Victory Day parade in Moscow, celebrating the Soviet Union's contribution to defeating Nazis in World War II. Dozens of world leaders are expected to attend.
A multitude of world leaders are gathering in Moscow ahead of the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany. Though already mired in controversy in the years gone by, this year the Kremlin's Victory Day parade is a showcase for something more disturbing: new alliances.
For Putin is the kind of symbol that he still could play an important role in the global stage.
Of the 29 world leaders who have RSVP'd to Putin's invite, it is China's leader Xi Jinping who has garnered the most attention. Xi was warmly received by his Russian counterpart, who emphasized the strength of bilateral ties between the nations.
Together with our Chinese friends, we firmly stand on guard for historical truth.
Xi and Putin signed a joint statement to further strengthen their ties, solidified with new economic and energy deals, cementing the country's no-limits partnership. And based off the truism that an enemy of my enemy is my friend, this display of solidarity is of little surprise. It comes just as Donald Trump, the US president, wages a trade war against China and pushes Russia towards peace talks over Ukraine.
By allying with Russia, he complicates plans for the US and for Europe as well, because if there is one single party, one single country that could have the power potentially to make Russia stop its illegal war against Ukraine, it is China.
Non-surprises were abundant, however, with European allies of Vladimir Putin also making a show of allegiance. Amongst them, the Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico and Serbian President Alexander Vučić, known for flirting with the Kremlin.
Does show to everybody that he is a true Russian proxy, copying copy and paste Russian playbook.
It was just yesterday that Vučić declared that Serbia remains on a European pathway. In an exclusive comment for TVP World, an EU Commission spokesperson responded to this inconsistency, stating that the EU has been crystal clear with its partners, including candidate countries such as Serbia. Relations with Russia cannot be business as usual.
If our true partners and allies in Europe continue the appeasement policy towards Serbia. We have seen it with Russia. We should learn our lessons and we should not repeat the mistakes that we have made with Russia.
For experts, this inconsistency underlines Vučić's own vulnerability.
Vučić needs Russia, needs Putin for multiple reasons, be it to cement his position at home, to satisfy his own voters, and make his position stronger.
For Russia too, the presence of world leaders serves as a legitimizing tool.
If you're looking at the rhetoric that Russia and the Russian regime has presented about Ukraine for a number of years now, it is that Ukraine is in the grip of Nazism, of fascism.
But while the leaders of those nations regarded as or verging on autocracy gather in Moscow, Ukraine, which has been subjected to Russia's imperialism for the past 11 years, is determined to point out the irony of the Kremlin's celebrations of the defeat of authoritarianism.
Tomorrow, the organizer of mass graves in Bucha will speak about the atrocities of the Nazis. And those who imposed the blockade of Mariupol will talk about the siege of Leningrad. It will be a parade of cynicism.
And while Moscow recently announced a 3-day ceasefire during the duration of the Victory Day celebrations, its deceptions are poised to be on full display on Friday. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
The EU's foreign policy chief says that €1 billion in assistance for Ukraine will be announced on Friday. A 2-day informal EU foreign ministers meeting concluded today here in Warsaw. When answering a question from our reporter, Poland's foreign minister raised the possibility of other players taking a leading role in the Russian-Ukrainian peace negotiations. Kazimierz Wysiak reports.
The statement from the Polish foreign minister on the peace process comes as the United States has recently announced it will be scaling back its mediation between Ukraine and Russia, saying that these two countries should instead focus on direct negotiations. I asked the Polish foreign minister whether the European Union would support this kind of talks.
But if that track fails, there are other candidates. There is Turkey, which keeps channels of communication, and then there is, above all, the People's Republic of China, which uniquely has the means to force Putin to the negotiating table and to moderate his demands.
This statement is rather unique, as European officials tend to avoid talking about China directly as a possible mediator in the future peace process. But what else happened here at the Gymnich informal summit? There will be also a new defense package announced soon of €1 billion for Ukraine. This is, again, another expression of continued support from the European countries for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. The European High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas, has spoken about the next sanctions package against Russia, the 17th sanctions package. Polish Foreign Minister said that these sanctions must be biting, as Russia is demanding from the US to lift these sanctions. Let's listen to what the High Representative had to say.
I'm happy that we put forward a package, and like Minister said, I mean, they are biting, and I think in order for Russia to want peace, we have to put more pressure, and sanctions is one of the tools.
The Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, was not present here at the summit, even though he was invited. But he decided to stay in the country as the Ukrainian parliament was voting on the signing of the minerals deal with the United States. But overall, this informal summit was a large expression of the continued support for Ukraine from the European Union. Kazimierz Wysiak from Warsaw, TVP World.
After assuming the role of German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz almost immediately traveled to France, then to Poland on his first days in office. The choice of destination signals a vast improvement in ties between Berlin and Warsaw than in recent years. However, there are still contentious issues between the two countries. Aaron Dahmen has the details.
A Friedrich Merz mission to Paris, then to Warsaw on his first day in office.
Poland is our big neighbor to the east, and that is why we have reached a very specific agreement here to deepen and expand this cooperation between our two countries in the coming years.
It's a symbolic move. Poland has long faced strained and tested ties with Germany, further aggravated in recent years by Merz's predecessor, Olaf Scholz.
Olaf Scholz never went out of his way to show that he takes Poland seriously. Friedrich Merz visited Warsaw on the same day as he visited Paris. I mean, that's, if anything, that's already a gesture.
War reparations for the suffering inflicted on Poland during World War II are still at the top of mind for many. Merz publicly reckoning with that history on Wednesday, saying the case is legally closed, but that Berlin is open to other joint initiatives, without going into detail.
We Germans have caused indescribable suffering to our Polish neighbors. We brought about the near total destruction of this city, which is our great guilt. From this guilt arises a great responsibility.
Despite talks about the Weimar Triangle, which covers Poland, Germany and France, and a proposed railway modernization linking the three countries' capital cities, migration remains the sticking point. Merz has appeared to act fast on his hardline election pledge to turn away asylum seekers, with more police deployed to control the border. In response, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is making his feelings clear.
Our concern is and should be to maintain the Schengen open border policy. And I understand the need for reinforced control, but this reinforced control should be dedicated primarily to the external borders of the European Union.
Some German media have likened Tusk's tone as a cold shower for Merz, who tried to ease concerns.
We want to do everything to protect the Schengen area, that the free movement of people in the European Union remains intact.
The new Chancellor campaigned on warmer ties with his country's partners, including Poland, and this trip put his diplomatic tacts to the test.
It's very good that Donald Tusk and Friedrich Merz can be so honest with each other. Talking about a positive new opening, new beginning in bilateral relations, while definitely also discussing problems and displaying differences of opinion.
A balancing act for Friedrich Merz, likely one of many to come. Aaron Dahmen, TVP World.
Despite consternation from European leaders, the European Commission announced on Thursday it was contemplating targeting 95 billion euros worth of U.S. goods with trade levies. The hit list includes fish, agricultural and industrial products, and will come into effect if negotiations with Washington fail. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more from Brussels.
Brussels and Washington are in the throes of a 90-day dialogue aiming to find an end to this transatlantic trade war. But on Thursday, the European Commission announced its backup plan if those dialogues fail. This comprises of a 95 billion euro list of products comprising American goods such as wine, agricultural products and potential aircrafts that could be slapped with future tariffs if supported by member states and businesses. Now, these stakeholders have up until the 10th of June to provide their feedback to the EU executive whether they should move forward with this proposal or hold fire. This announcement comes off the back of the Financial Times newspaper reporting on Thursday that officials and European leaders were urging that EU executive to not go forward with any reciprocal trade measures, to not poke the bear, that being US President Donald Trump, ahead of the NATO summit in The Hague. Many of them are worried about the turbulent decisions of that 47th President of the United States. But what we know so far on Thursday is that the US and the UK inked a new trade partnership, with many across the aisle hoping for a similar optimistic outcome. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
Now let's return to the Vatican and go live as is a new pontiff. Let's go to our correspondent, Alex Cadet. Good evening, Alex. So who is Pope Leo XIV and what do we know about him?
Good evening from the very heart of the Vatican, Don. He is the first American pontiff ever. So certainly that is a historic moment in of itself. He was a close advisor to Pope Francis, and in many ways we expect he will continue in Pope Francis's legacy. He was made the prefect of the dicastery for bishops by Pope Francis, which meant he was responsible for selecting bishops around the world, a position of great influence within the Catholic Church. He is, of course, from the United States, but he spent 14 years as a missionary in Peru, indicating that he has a global outlook on the role of the church, an inclusive church, one of unity. We heard that in his address, emphasizing the themes of peace, unity and love, reflecting what he described as his dedication to building a compassionate and inclusive church. The big question running up to this conclave, running up to the white smoke coming out of the Sistine Chapel's chimney, was whether or not the direction of Pope Francis, the reforming, progressive direction, would continue. This seems that the path is the one chosen by the cardinals, that of continuing Pope Francis' legacy. Of course, the first American cardinal is a significant moment, a significant landmark for the Catholic Church. Those thinking that maybe that might be a nod to Donald Trump, the new and imposing president of the United States, I would advise caution. The new Pope Leo XIV, I should say, is very close friends with the Archbishop of Chicago, who has been fiercely critical of President Trump. So that will create a very interesting dynamic in the coming weeks and months. So this new Pope, Leo XIV, the first American Pope, clearly setting a direction, continuing in Pope Francis's legacy. Perhaps not entirely surprising, considering most of the cardinals were picked by Pope Francis himself, but certainly a younger pope in his late 60s. Now, that may not seem young to many, but certainly that means that there are many years ahead with this particular new pontiff at the helm of the Catholic Church. A very interesting reaction. I was down on the ground in the crowd. Initially, there was a bit of a muted silence, wondering who this new pope was. Then there were cheers and some boos. So a divided reaction on the streets of Rome. Many Italians here hoping for an Italian pope, but Leo XIV is now the new head of the Roman Catholic Church. Don?
Very interesting choice indeed, and of course the speed of which this all went through is also quite surprising. Alex Cardier reporting for us live from St. Peter's Square. Thank you very much for that report. The United States and Britain will announce a deal to lower tariffs on some goods on Thursday, the first such trade agreement since U.S. President Donald Trump sparked a global trade war with universal levies. Jan Kennedy has the details.
So I'm going to begin.
After weeks of uncertainty, US President Donald Trump offered the UK a measure of much-needed relief as both sides reach a critical trade agreement.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade.
Trump hailed the deal a success, claiming it will generate more than $500 million in additional revenue for the US. The deal includes scrapping tariffs on UK steel and aluminium exports, with levies on the UK automotive sector cut from 25% to 10%.
I mean, it's not a so-called a comprehensive deal, because that would have to be ratified by the US Congress. It's rather a framework kind of agreement. Some detail will have to be fulfilled. But basically, it's whatever it is, it's better than nothing.
The open question is, can the deal be seen as fulfilling the promise of Brexit? Britain forging its own policy without the need to look at the EU.
The cooperation with a smaller partner is much easier than to the comparable partner. Maybe that's why a very difficult situation is between the US and Europe entirely.
But this weekend, all eyes will be on Geneva, where US and Chinese officials will meet, hopeful that the so-called City of Dialogue would provide a spark to resolve the largest ongoing trade dispute.
It is obvious that they have to make some deal, because at current tariff rates, there will be almost no trade between China and US in a couple of years. And I don't think it is possible that US and China cut off each other from their self.
Mounting tensions between the economic powerhouses have led each to impose tariffs exceeding 100% on the other, but now they appear to be open to negotiate.
You can't get any higher. It's at 145, so we know it's coming down. I expect to have a very good relationship with China, Scott. I think it's a very friendly meeting. They look forward to doing it in an elegant way.
Meanwhile, the European Union proposed €95 billion countermeasures against the United States to be enacted if Trump reinstates the currently suspended so-called Liberation Day tariffs. But as the first agreement is signed, this might not be necessary. Jan Kennedy, TVP World.
Myself, the answer is yes, and we look forward to being.
On Wednesday, a gruesome murder at the University of Warsaw sent shockwaves across the country. Police have launched an investigation into the killing of a 53-year-old door attendant. According to reports, the perpetrator was a 22-year-old Polish national and a law student at the university. Our reporter Alex Sumiński has more.
I am standing in front of the main entrance to the campus of Warsaw University, where on Wednesday, a 22-year-old Polish law student entered the main campus with an axe. He then proceeded towards the Auditorium Maximum, where he attacked and killed a 53-year-old door attendant as she was closing the doors of that Auditorium Maximum. He then went on to also attack a security guard here from the university who rushed to the aid of that woman. This man was also injured. He was taken to the hospital, but his condition as of Thursday has improved and it is said to be steady. Now, the perpetrator, Mieszko R., was apprehended and is in custody, and this is what the regional prosecutor had to say on the matter on Thursday.
All of the gathered evidence made it possible to formulate charges against the suspect, Mieszko R. The charges pertain to the murder with extreme cruelty and attempt to kill the university guard, as well as desecration of the corpse of the victim.
The Polish Minister of the Interior, Tomasz Siemoniak, organized a meeting to discuss the crime, which is one that has truly shaken the academic community.
Nobody among the students could have expected this. It's unbelievable. It's very sad, and I'd like to give my condolences to the loved ones of the victim.
There is no doubt that what happened here is a great tragedy for everyone. A great tragedy for the victim herself, her family, the perpetrator, and the whole student community.
As you see behind me, there are black flags on the gates to Warsaw University because it was decided that Thursday would be a day of mourning. There is also a significant police presence, but that is something that I'm describing to you because the officers are in front of us. But also quite some media presence is also here. You probably can see a crew behind me. Now, the Warsaw University also decided not to go ahead with its annual music festival Juvenalia, which was to take place on Friday and Saturday. For TVP World from Warsaw, Alex Sumiński.
A new pope has been chosen, and never before has an American led the Vatican in the Roman Catholic Church until now. Leo XIV, previously known as Cardinal Robert Prevost, hails from Chicago, and now joining me to discuss the new pope, his views and the impact that it could have on the Church and the world, is Father Piotr Kiniewicz, former assistant professor at the John Paul II Catholic University in Lublin. Hello, Father, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, welcome.
Now, I'd like to just start off by getting your reaction to Leo XIV. Who is he? What do you know about him? And what are your thoughts?
We were watching the transmission from Vatican with my co-friars in our religious house in Warsaw. And we were very joyful about this election because he is religious, like we are. In his speech, he was talking about peace based on Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, which is the true foundation of our faith. He presented himself as a bishop for the people, but also as a Christian with the people. So when I was listening to the comment during the service a couple of minutes ago, I realized that the world does not hear the message of faith. It is politics what the world is listening to. But my perception of Leo XIV is that he did not, when he was talking about peace, he was mostly talking about our relationships, not about politics, not about the ceasing of hostilities among nations. He was talking about ceasing hostilities among the people, and that's different. So I expect something which is not entirely a continuation of Francis' line. I think he will be quite unique, and as he is a kind of surprise for, I guess, most of us, he will present his personal approach, his personal view about on the role of the Church, papacy in this world. I guess he will be more like John Paul II after Paul XVI, than Francis II, as some would expect. Even though he is from America and he has strong ties with South America. And by the way, people are saying he's the first American. Actually, he is not, because Pope Francis, he was American too, from the South America, and this new Pope is a second from the New World. So I guess for us Europeans, he will bring some surprises like Francis did.
Mm-hmm. Well, indeed, and he's also a dual passport holder. He is, I believe he also holds a passport from Peru. Maybe this kind of international status that he has, the fact that he spent so much time abroad, also made him so appealing for the cardinals.
He was working in many dicasteries in Vatican. And some people perceive him as a member, just a member of Curia. So I think this is a mistake. He is, first of all, he is the pastor. And it is quite significant that the first Sunday after his election is Sunday of Good Pastor, of Good Shepherd. So I expect him to be a good shepherd for this flock of the church. It was significant that he had a part of his speech to his former diocesanes from Peru. It is very significant also that he mentioned that I am of the order of Redemptorists, that he brings his identity to the office of the Pope. He is not just a member of Roman Curia.
And finally, last question. We only have about a minute left. How do you think he will be perceived in Poland as opposed to, say, Pope Francis?
With hope. I think he brings a lot of peace with himself. That's my perception. He is a man of faith. So we expect him to be a man of faith, and that he will encourage our faith to grow. That's my expectation, at least.
Okay, Father Piotr Kiniewicz, former assistant professor at the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
God bless you. Bye.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for watching us. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.